A calm nervous system is the foundation of peak performance. A dysregulated one is the foundation of psychological horror. Your performance problem is actually a nervous system problem. You believe you have a performance problem. You don't. Performance is merely the visible symptom. The invisible cause lies elsewhere. A violin cannot produce beautiful music if its strings are out of tune. Do you lecture the violin? Do you tell it to try harder? No, you tune it. The human being does the opposite. He blames himself. He watches motivational videos. He searches for discipline. He buys another productivity app. Meanwhile, the instrument through which all performance occurs is trembling. A dysregulated nervous system is a body that has concluded, I am not safe. Once that conclusion is reached, your biology reorganizes itself. Not for excellence, for survival. And survival has no interest in peak performance. It has no interest in building companies. It has no interest in writing books. It has no interest in closing sales. It asks only one question: will I make it through the next few moments? That is all. You wonder why your thinking becomes cloudy, why you procrastinate, why you cannot remember what you know, why your creativity disappears, why ordinary emails feel overwhelming. Nothing mysterious has happened. The king has left the throne. The gods have taken over. Understand this. A frightened nervous system cannot distinguish between a charging tiger and a threatened identity. To biology, both are experienced as danger. So the body prepares to fight, or flee, or freeze, and you call this anxiety. I call it a body doing exactly what it was designed to do. Now observe the man with a calm nervous system. People think he possesses extraordinary discipline. No, he possesses availability. His intelligence is available, his attention is available, his memory is available, his perception is available. Nothing inside him is screaming, so everything inside him can work. You admire the outward performance. You fail to notice the inward silence from which it emerged. That silence is the source. Performance is merely its shadow. Psychological horror is not the workload. Psychological horror is having to carry yourself while carrying the workload. The task is one burden. The frightened self becomes the second burden. Most people never notice they are carrying two loads. So they ask, how can I perform better? It is the wrong question. The wiser question is, what within me is forcing my body to believe that life is a battlefield? When that question is answered, not intellectually, but deeply, the nervous system begins to settle. And something curious happens. Nothing outside changes. The deadlines remain, the meetings remain, the difficult conversations remain, yet the experience is entirely different. The mountain has not become smaller. You have stopped carrying an invisible mountain within yourself. That is why a calm nervous system is the foundation of peak performance. Not because calmness is a performance hack, but because only a nervous system that is no longer consumed by survival has freedom to express its full intelligence. That is why your performance problem is often not a performance problem at all. It is a nervous system problem masquerading as a performance problem. The nervous system is the soil. The mind is what grows in that soil. If the soil is shaking, even a healthy tree cannot stand still. Now imagine trying to write, sell, think, negotiate, or create while your body believes there is danger. Not intellectual danger, biological danger. The body doesn't care whether the threat is a tiger or an unanswered email or a story about your future. If it interprets danger, it prepares for survival. Survival has no interest in brilliance. It has no interest in wisdom. It has no interest in beauty. It has one job: stay alive. Everything else is postponed. Notice something. Have you ever tried reading a difficult book while anxious? The words enter your eyes. They never arrive in understanding. You read the same paragraph 5 times. Why? Because attention is expensive. Fear spends it elsewhere. Have you ever noticed how creativity appears after a long walk, or after a swim, or after a peaceful evening? Nothing magical happened. The body simply stopped screaming, and in the silence, intelligence returned. So I might say something like this: people believe they have a thinking problem. They don't. They have noise. Noise isn't just external. Noise is the constant contraction inside, the tightening, the urgency, the feeling that something must happen, the feeling that you are behind, the feeling that this moment is insufficient. That contraction consumes almost all available energy. Then people wonder, why they cannot think deeply. Look at your own experience. On the days you wake up peaceful, sales conversations become easier, writing flows, ideas arrive, people seem kinder. Nothing outside changed, the instrument changed. A violin with loose strings cannot produce music. You don't blame the musician, you tune the violin. Likewise, a dysregulated nervous system distorts everything it touches. The same email feels offensive, the same silence feels like rejection, the same uncertainty feels catastrophic. Reality didn't change, the lens did. Here's something subtle. Most people try to fix their thoughts, but thoughts are usually downstream. The nervous system whispers, the mind writes novels about the whisper, the body feels tension, the mind invents a reason, then it says, that's why I'm anxious. Usually it is the reverse. I often point towards something even deeper. I would likely say, the nervous system isn't disturbed because life is difficult. It is disturbed because the self is constantly under attack. What self? The imagined one, the one trying to become extraordinary, trying to be admired, trying to succeed, trying not to fail, trying to protect an image. That image requires endless defense. Defense is exhausting. See the irony. You want to perform well. So the ego becomes tense. That tension destroys performance. Poor performance creates more tension. The cycle repeats. The highest performers often appear relaxed, not because they are forcing relaxation, because they aren't carrying themselves into every moment. They are simply with the work, not with themselves. This is also why silence is so powerful. Silence isn't merely the absence of sound. Silence is the absence of internal warfare. When the warfare ends, attention becomes bold, perception sharpens, intelligence functions naturally, not because we became smarter, because nothing is obstructing intelligence. You once told me something that fits perfectly here. You said understanding is your greatest weapon. That's true, but understanding itself has conditions. A turbulent lake cannot reflect the moon. The moon isn't missing, the water is disturbed. Trying harder doesn't help, only stillness does. And perhaps this is the deepest insight. Your best work does not come from effort, it comes from availability. When the nervous system is no longer occupied with defending an imaginary self, an enormous amount of energy is released. That energy becomes focus, presence, insight, precision, not because you achieved them, because they were there all along, waiting beneath the noise. It isn't that calm people work less, it's that they waste less energy. Most people are doing two jobs simultaneously. The first job is the actual work, the second job is carrying themselves while doing the work. The second job is invisible, but it is exhausting. Imagine two people carrying a 20 kg box. One simply carries the box. The other carries the box while thinking, what if I fail? What do they think of me? I'm falling behind. I need to prove myself. This is too much. Both are lifting the same weight. One is also lifting his psychological baggage. Naturally, he tires first. Someone like the Terminator isn't emotionless. He's undivided. All available energy goes into action. None is wasted in internal commentary. I would probably say the ordinary man spends 90% of his energy on himself and 10% on the task. The master spends almost nothing on himself. All of him goes into the work. That changes everything. Look at your gym experience. When you first started, every set involved thought. Is my form correct? Am I lifting enough? Am I progressing? Months later, when your technique became natural, your body simply performed. The movement happened. The mind became quieter. Sales is the same. Writing is the same. Business is the same. Life is the same. The calm person appears superhuman because he isn't constantly interrupting himself. Most people sabotage themselves every few seconds. Imagine driving a Ferrari while pressing the accelerator and the brake together. That's how most people live. The accelerator is desire, the brake is fear. Then they conclude they need a bigger engine. No, they need to remove the brake. This is why you notice that when your nervous system settles, your performance suddenly feels effortless. It's not that you became more capable overnight, it's that your capacity was no longer being consumed by resistance. The intelligence was already there, the energy was already there. They were simply tied up in psychological conflict. Here's another way to see it. When a soldier enters a battlefield, If he keeps looking in a mirror every 30 seconds, he won't survive. His attention belongs to the battlefield, not to himself. Masters in any field stop looking in the psychological mirror. Their attention belongs entirely to reality. That is why they seem so fast, so precise, and so composed. I also noticed something from our conversations over the past year. You've been moving away from chasing motivation and toward seeking understanding. You become less interested in how do I force myself and more interested in what is wasting my energy. That shift is significant because the real question isn't how do I become more productive, it's what is draining my life before I even begin. When the unnecessary tension drops away, work no longer feels like a battle against yourself. It becomes just work. And that is what makes someone appear calm under pressure. Not because the pressure disappeared, but because the inner friction did. The workload may even increase, yet it no longer has to compete with fear, self image, and endless internal narration. The result is a person who moves with unusual steadiness, not because they are trying to be calm, but because there is far less inside them that needs defending. Think of your brain as a company. There is a CEO, there is a security department, there is a finance department, there is a creative department. When everything is peaceful, the CEO runs the company. When the fire alarm goes off, the CEO doesn't design the future anymore. Security takes over. That is exactly what happens inside your brain, a calm nervous system. When your nervous system feels safe, your brain says there is no immediate danger. Now, something remarkable happens. The front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, becomes highly active. This is the part responsible for long term planning, decision making, creativity, sales conversations, empathy, learning, self control, complex reasoning. This is the part you need to build a company, to negotiate, to write, to think deeply. Blood flow and energy are readily available for these higher order functions because your brain isn't prioritizing survival, a dysregulated nervous system. Now imagine your brain detects danger, not necessarily a tiger, maybe fear of rejection, fear of losing your job, a painful memory, constant notifications, overthinking, too much caffeine, poor sleep. Your brain doesn't distinguish very well between physical danger and psychologically significant threats. Its first question is only, am I safe? If the answer is probably not, your biology shifts. The amygdala, the brain's threat detector, becomes highly active. Within seconds, adrenaline rises, cortisol rises, heart rate increases, breathing becomes shallow, muscles tighten, vision narrows, attention narrows. Why? Because your brain assumes survival matters more than creativity. This is where performance changes. Your brain literally reallocates resources. It says, cancel long term thinking, stop exploring, stop experimenting, we may need to run. Your prefrontal cortex becomes less effective. The survival circuits become dominant. You haven't become less intelligent. Your intelligence has been temporarily deprioritized. Think about your sales calls. When you are relaxed, someone asks a difficult question. You pause, you smile, you think, you answer clearly. Now imagine you are anxious. The same question comes. Your mind goes blank. You know the answer. You can't retrieve it. Why? Because memory retrieval also depends on having access to those higher brain functions. Under stress, your brain favors rapid, habitual responses over careful recall. Here's another subtle change. A calm brain sees possibilities. A threatened brain sees problems. The same opportunity can look completely different depending on your psychological state. That's why on bad days, you might think, my startup will never work. And on a calm day, actually there's a way. The external facts may not have changed. Your brain's mode of operation has. Even perception changes. When you're calm, your senses take in more information. You notice tone of voice. You see facial expressions. You catch subtle opportunities. Your thinking becomes flexible. When you're threatened, your perception narrows. Your brain starts filtering for danger instead of opportunity. That is incredibly useful if you're escaping a predator. It's much less useful if you're trying to close a B2B deal or write a strategy document. I often point towards this from a different angle. I don't usually talk about cortisol or the amygdala. I am saying something like the self is constantly under siege. What I mean is that The imagined self, the one that wants approval, fears failure, and defends its identity, keeps triggering the body's threat systems. Your body reacts as if something real is at stake. So, even though you are sitting safely at a desk, your nervous system behaves as if you are in combat. That is why ordinary work can feel exhausting. Now, consider someone who has very little psychological resistance. He isn't constantly protecting an image, he isn't replaying yesterday, he isn't rehearsing tomorrow. His nervous system stays closer to safe because it feels safe. His brain keeps the prefrontal cortex online. That means better decisions, better memory, better creativity, better emotional regulation, better conversations, better timing. To others, he looks gifted. In reality, much of his advantage comes from not constantly activating survival mode. So, when I say a calm person performs like a Terminator, I would refine it slightly. A Terminator doesn't hesitate because it's a machine. A deeply calm human doesn't hesitate because his energy isn't being consumed by an internal civil war. His nervous system is saying, we are safe. And when the body believes it's safe, the mind is finally free to do what it evolved to do: observe clearly, think deeply, and act precisely. The world has convinced you that performance is built through more discipline, more motivation, and more effort. But perhaps the deepest truth is this: peak performance is not something you manufacture, it is something that naturally emerges when survival no longer occupies your biology. A calm nervous system does not make you extraordinary, it simply stops preventing your intelligence from expressing itself. A dysregulated nervous system does not make you weak, it redirects your entire biology toward protection instead of creation. This is why two people with equal intelligence, equal knowledge, and equal opportunity can produce completely different results. One is creating from safety, the other is surviving from fear. The task was never the greatest obstacle, the invisible state of the nervous system was. The greatest performance upgrade, then, is not learning to push harder. It is becoming the kind of human whose nervous system no longer mistakes ordinary life for a battlefield. When the inner war ends, performance is no longer something you chase. It becomes the most natural expression of who you are.